So you got the Sony Alpha a6300, a6400, a6500, a6400 again, and or a6600. You want your music videos to look like this. The very first thing you're going to see on your menu is quality image size. Go down to aspect ratio and turn that to 16:9. That's going to be a little bit wider than the 3:2 ratio. Long exposure noise reduction, keep that on. High ISO noise reduction, normal. Color space, sRGB. Don't worry about the lens compensation. Shoot mode, drive one is your next menu. Bracket settings, that's going to be more for photography to get the same shot with different exposures. Memory, that is for your 1 and 2 slots on the top. One we're going to do in 4K, the other one we will do in 120 frames HD. Next is your first focus menu, focus mode, continuous autofocus, or you can come down to manual focus, depends what you want to do. Leave this at balance emphasis, focus area. Now there's a few options here and some may come in handy in some situations, but you want to go here. Wide works the best. Autofocus illuminator, just keep that at auto. Center lock on autofocus, just turn that off. The next autofocus menu, autofocus with shutter, just keep that on. Pre-autofocus, keep that on. Autofocus area auto clear, I like to keep this off. Display where your autofocus is, turn that on. You don't need anything in the autofocus micro adjustment. The next menu is your exposure menu. Now your ISO, I like to start it out with the lowest it can possibly be. Metering mode. Now there's a bunch of stuff in the metering mode menu as well. The best one you're going to have is here. You're going to use this 99% of the time. This is going to be for what exposure it wants to pick up. Does it want to select the exposure that's in the middle, or does it want kind of like a balance thing? Spot metering point, center, exposure step. This is kind of giving you more exposure, so I don't want too much. Sorry about that. AEL with shutter, keep that at auto. Don't worry about that. Flash, that's not for us. White balance, you want to set your white balance each time, but I guess you can start it off as auto. This is just saying where you want to start it at. Priority set in auto white balance, white. Picture effect off. Now we go to our picture profile. Now this is going to depend on whether or not you're a good color grader. If you are not good at color grading, I suggest a PP2 just as is. That's going to give you good exposure right out of the camera. Now, if you want more control, I want you to come down to PP7, PP6, it really don't matter because we're going to play with it. The very first thing we're going to cover here is the gamma. Now it starts at a S-Log2. These have the most dynamic range, but since this camera is only 8-bit, it's almost overkill and not doing its job correctly. So I like to meet it in the middle with about a Cine 4. You don't need to do too much in black gamma or knee. Leave that alone. Color mode. Now, I like to change this to ITU 709 matrix because that's what most HD TVs see. The saturation is up a little bit. I'm going to bring that down. The color phase, you don't have to mess with that. That's going to mess up your magentas and your greens. This is where you turn up your reds or your greens or your blues. I wouldn't mess with any of that. Now, details. Keep this at -7. That's the farthest it can go. You don't, if you want to add sharpness, do it in post-production. Don't do it here. Now we got PP7. The black level you can change. I actually want to bring the black level down to -10. I do like my blacks to be extra black. Gamma, Cine 4. Black gamma, range, wide. Level, I don't touch. Knee, I don't touch. Color mode, ITU 709 matrix. Saturation, -2. Color phase 0. Color depth, I don't touch. Detail, -7. Next is the color. Nothing in there. Focus assist, focus magnifier. This is going to be mostly for your photography. Autofocus and focus on. Manual focus assist on. Peaking level, here you go. Mid, peaking color, red. This is going to tell you what's in focus when you are manually focusing. Smile face detection, on. And down here at file format, we are going to do XAVCS 4K. This is the best quality that this camera offers. Record settings, 24p, 100M, Super 35. S&Q settings, that's going to be for your slow motion playback or something like that. You don't have to worry about that, or dual video recording. Next, movie 2. Auto slow shutter on, audio recording on, obviously. Audio recording level, you keep that as is. Audio level display, I like to keep mine on just to make sure I'm getting sound. Really doesn't matter. Wind noise reduction, you can keep that on. Marker display, marker settings, that doesn't matter. You can skip these 3, but we want to come down here to steady shot. This is going to be your in-body stabilization. This can save you at some time. So we want to turn that on. Steady shot settings, auto, zoom settings. That doesn't matter. We'll keep it at optical zoom only. We can skip finder monitor, finder frame rate, and we want to come down to zebra lines. This is going to tell you if your shot is overexposed or not. I like to keep it right there at 100. Not too much, not too little. Grid lines, I love my grid lines at rule of thirds grid. Exposure set guide on. After we do all that, we want to set our exposure to about the right rules, and we can adjust at the shot. So I like to keep my ISO all the way down to start with, my aperture as low as it can go, and my shutter speed 1/50th, because our frame rate is 24 frames. Now we go into the menu and we go to the memory. We click 1, and now that remembers all those settings in memory 1. So all you have to do is click your dial over and you'll have all these settings. So now that we have that saved, we are going to go back to file format, record settings. This is going to be in your movie 1 menu, 1 out of 9. Here, we change this from 4K to HD. And we go down, record settings, 120 frames per second, 100M. Now, I want to keep all the settings the same, except I want my shutter to start at the right shutter speed, double our frame rate. Now, I go back in, I find our memory, probably back on the other side, and I set this to 2. Now, when I'm shooting, I can easily go from 4K, 24 frames per second, the highest it can go, and I want to shoot slow motion, I just click the dial to 2, and now I have 120 frames in HD.